And people around the coastal empire and beyond are reflecting on Ben Tucker's music and legacy tonight. They are definitely shocked by his death. Now, even though Tucker played with just about everyone in the jazz world, he also left quite a mark here at home. Savannah jazz trombonist Teddy Adams was one of Ben Tucker's best friends. They met in Japan in the early 70s. By the mid-70s, they were playing jazz together in Savannah. They formed the Coastal Jazz Association in 1982 and started the Savannah Jazz Festival a year later.
He's going to be missed. He's going to be missed, and he was a gregarious, outgoing dude. And I got the same response or the same reply from everybody I've talked to so far. I can't believe it. It was so sudden and unexpected.
Adams says he's received calls from jazz musicians all over as Tucker was internationally known. Oddly enough, a Jazz Association board member called Adams Tuesday morning about getting Tucker to play a fundraiser at the Landings. Adams said he'd call Tucker a little later.
And before I could call him, Terry called me and said, disregard what I asked you to do. We lost Ben. And I could not believe that. I could not believe that.
Savannah Mayor Edna Jackson says Ben Tucker's passing is a tremendous loss.
He was a person that gave back to this community, not because he wanted the glory or anything of that nature, but it was because it was the right thing to do.
Ben Tucker would come here to Randy Wood Guitars in Bloomingdale about 4 or 5 times a year to get his bass fixed, and in the process he struck up a friendship with the owner. Randy Wood builds custom guitars, mandolins, banjos, and dobros from scratch and repairs all kinds of instruments. He first met Tucker about 30 years ago.
His old bass was constantly been getting cracks from the humidity and the weather down here, so it was almost a losing battle fighting the cracks in that thing.
Tucker even played on a DVD that Wood produced inside his Bloomingdale concert hall back in 2007.
He's a great guy, one of the finest people I've ever known. Just willing to help anybody. He didn't meet any strangers.
Ben Tucker also owned a radio station and a jazz club at one time. Mayor Jackson says Tucker was able to bring the black and white communities together through his radio station and through his music. And every person who knew Tucker has a lot of great stories to tell about him. Jennifer?
And Vice President Biden spoke at the port of Savannah just hours after speaking at the port of Charleston. WJCL's Rob Macko is live along the Savannah River with more on what he had to say. Rob.
Well, Jennifer, we all know that the Georgia ports want to deepen the Savannah harbor from 42 to 47 feet. And as you mentioned, Vice President Joe Biden, quoting his grandfather, said it's going to happen come hell or high water. Now, the vice president spoke for about 20 minutes today at the Georgia ports. He spoke before port workers, elected officials, and their guests. He talked about the supersized ships that will be out on the water once the Panama Canal is expanded in 2015. Now, those cargo ships will be able to carry 50% more than current cargo ships do. Biden says it will be important for Savannah to accommodate the larger ships and try to capitalize on that business. Now, Savannah is the fastest growing port in the country, and Biden says it needs to be expanded.
What are we doing? We're arguing about whether or not to deepen this port another 7 feet. Folks, look, it's time we get moving. I'm sick of this stuff. Time to go. Folks, this is not a partisan issue. This is an economic issue.
Now, Biden did not mention specifics on how this project would get funded. President Obama only put $1.28 million for the ports in his budget. Now, the state of Georgia is committing more than $230 million for it. The Senate approved the project in May, but we're still waiting for House approval. Now, Biden says that manufacturing is coming back, and he says that this project could help capitalize on that. Project supporters say that this harbor deepening will bring a 5.5 to 1 return on investment. Jennifer?
All right, hopefully our ship will come in as well. Appreciate it. Thank you, Rob.
The Savannah neighborhood is getting some relief from highway noise. Workers are building a sound barrier between I-516 and the Tatumville neighborhood, and many say that it's been a long time coming. Mary Alice Levant has lived in her Tatumville home all her life. She's been dealing with the noise and pollution from Interstate 516 since the 50s. It's gotten worse over the years. How noisy does it get out here, the highway?
It get real noisy sometimes, but we kind of get it, just a tad though.
The interstate lies right behind her home.
I-516 becomes Duran Avenue when it hits Montgomery Street. But Levant is finally getting some relief. The city is spending $1 million to build a 10-foot-high sound wall along I-516.
The folks that are living along the corridor have to deal with noise pollution and air pollution coming from vehicles and the like. So this is going to give them real great relief, we're hoping.
Work began about 6 weeks ago. Crews will place the first sections of wall in the ground Thursday. The project should be finished by August.
While not officially part of Project Duran, one of the community recommendations was to build a sound wall between Interstate 516 and the Tatumville neighborhood.
The fact that the highway was built without any protection for the neighborhood was a real tragedy. It's one that would never occur today, thank goodness. And it's a wrong that needed to be righted.
It could be another 5 years before Project Duran sees its first shovel in the ground. But for Levant, the sound wall is already a big improvement.
It's going to prove it good, I think. I know it will.
Susan Broker, the director of the City of Savannah's Citizen Office, says that the city offered Tatumville residents money to move out of the neighborhood, but she says they wanted to stay. Jennifer? 3 Toombs County High School students face felony charges of burglary and interference with government property. They went into the school on the night of October 7th and dumped 2,000 crickets, painted a wall, and emptied some fire extinguishers.
17-year-old Juan Lasoya is one of the students charged in the senior prank. WJCL talked to his mother, Renee Lasoya, and their attorney, John Morrison, in Mount Vernon. They say a teacher knew about the prank.
It's not fair. It's not fair considering the teacher's involvement. You know, if he'll accept the punishment, but not as harsh. I mean, don't ruin his future.
These students relied on the representation of that teacher who told them if they got in trouble, she'd take care of it.
Toombs County School Superintendent Dr. Kim Corley says she can't comment on the case, but in an email she told me, quote, "We do not at any time consider any incident where school vandalism is involved to be considered simply a school prank." In addition to the criminal charges, the boys have to attend alternative school so they can graduate from high school.
They have marred his record and the record of these other students while protecting the teacher.
I can't pay for college. I don't have the money. And a felony, or even, you know, the charge of the felony, there's no scholarship, there's no grant, there's no loans, you know, there's no job.
Morrison says the teacher resigned from her job. I talked to that teacher by phone. She says she wasn't involved and refused further comment.
Attorney Morrison gave me copies of phone records, which he says shows nearly 60 text messages and 4 phone calls between the teacher and one of the students involved in the prank. He says that the school district is withholding that information from the police department.
Morrison has now released that call log to police. Lyons Police Chief Wesley Walker says it will become part of the investigation. Walker says there was a similar act of vandalism at the high school during the last school year. Those students haven't been caught, but Walker says breaking into a school is a felony, so those students would be charged with felonies too.
Chief Walker says it will be up to the district attorney's office to decide if any of the charges against the students should be reduced or dropped. Attorney Morrison says he's willing to take the case to a jury trial to clear his client's name. Rob Macko, WJCL News, working for you.
The massive Truman Parkway project heading into the home stretch. Good evening to you. I'm Jennifer Andrews.
And I'm Rob Macko. Contractors are on track to finish the final phase by March. Today, I got an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at their progress.
The Georgia Department of Transportation has been working on the Truman Parkway since the 1980s. The project is now in its 5th and final phase. The 2-mile stretch will take the parkway from Whitfield Avenue to Abercorn Street.
Can't wait.
How come?
You clean up all the traffic around here.
I could get to Eisenhower and Duran quicker, and I can get to Abercorn a whole lot faster.
Engineers and contractors from Balfour Beatty began Phase 5 in March 2010.
Phase 5 of the Truman Parkway is a $72 million project. Contractors say they're ahead of schedule and under budget. These mile-long twin bridges that run over the Vernon River make up about half of the project's value.
Contractors had to build 6 twin bridges, 2 over Whitfield Avenue, 2 over White Bluff Road, and then these giants over the Vernon River. These cranes each weigh 500,000 pounds. Crews had to build platforms for them in the river before constructing the twin bridges. It's an impressive project, and a few residents have been caught trespassing trying to get a closer look. DOT Communications Officer Jill Nagel warns people to stay away from work zones.
It is a dangerous place. Even if there's no activity in the area, it still can be dangerous to anyone that is trespassing in that area.
Contractors say 100,000 vehicles pass through this part of Southside Savannah every day. The final piece of the Truman will ease some of the congestion.
This is something that will help get you from the south side down to the downtown area in half the time.
When finished, there will be new interchanges at Whitfield Avenue, White Bluff Avenue, and Abercorn Street.
And crews have been working on the project 6 days a week. Again, the final section of the Truman Parkway is on schedule to be completed in March 2014.
Well, a local gunmaker thinks his business has been hurt from the fallout from the Sandy Hook school shooting. Macko anchor Rob Macko is here with a special report. Rob, what'd you find out?
Hey, Jennifer. John Galetta of Port Wentworth says this all started the week after Sandy Hook. Now, he believes that some in corporate America have become anti-gun and thinks they're targeting businesses that they don't agree with.
A skeleton crew makes AK-47 and AK-74 assault rifles inside the ironclad armory in Port Wentworth. John Galetta started the business out of his garage about 3 years ago. He moved into this building last year.
80 to 90% of our business is to retail and to distributors.
Private individuals can buy from Galetta too, but they have to fill out an ATF Form 4473, which requires them to have a clean background check. Galetta says everything was moving along well with his business. Then came the Sandy Hook school shooting. After that, he says the credit card processing company that he worked with for 7 months abruptly terminated its agreement with him. Galetta says a representative from the company First Data called him after 4 one afternoon and said their last transaction would be processed at 6 p.m.
She said, what do you do? And we explained that, we're a gun manufacturer and we sell firearms. And she says, well, at this point in time, we're no longer doing firearms and you're cut off.
A letter in the mail followed stating the relationship was severed due to an unqualified business model. Galetta says other credit card processing companies also turned him down. He believes First Data and the others caved into political pressure.
We tried several different credit card companies after that, and they was either anti-gun, they would not have nothing to do with any firearm business.
First Data says it doesn't comment on individual customers, but its Director of Communications, Elizabeth Grice, said our policy has not changed. First Data does not discriminate against shooting sports merchants and has always processed firearms transactions for merchants that meet our credit risk management policies. Galetta says it took more than 4 weeks to find a credit card processor that would take his business. During that time, he says orders came in, but there was no way to accept payments. He says it was devastating.
We couldn't make payroll. We couldn't pay our net 30 accounts. We couldn't pay the light bill. We couldn't pay rent. We were dead in the water.
Galetta laid off 3 full-time employees, and he cut hours for the ones that were left. Part-time employee Steve Betcher says he lost about a week and a half's worth of pay. Fortunately, he has another full-time job.
It's been a ripple effect throughout the company. Employees can't come into work if we're not receiving the parts, paychecks, all that, everything's affected.
Things are now slowly getting back to normal. Galetta can accept payments again, but he says First Data is still holding $17,000 of his, which he may not see for 6 months.
And I talked to another gun maker about this issue. He says that other firearms manufacturers have also had trouble like this since the Sandy Hook shooting. Another credit card processing company told me that each merchant is looked at on an individual basis. And there could be a variety of reasons why a merchant isn't approved, everything from creditworthiness to how the merchant does business. Jennifer?
It sounds like, though, at least they're getting it worked out, right?
Yeah, it took them I think he went through about 4 different attempts to find a new processor. Finally, he ended up with a processor out of the country that's processing his credit card orders right now.
Oh, wow. Interesting. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks.